Metropol Television Business M is back. And after the news and the meeting with Stephanie, that means that we are getting serious this morning. We are joined by Dr. Njaramba in the studio this morning as we traverse the economy and tell you what headlines are you waking up to this morning and how they affect the money in your pocket, or how they already affected how it is that you're going to run your business. Remember, hashtag business M. My producer tells me it's a capital A and M and B. That's what it is, isn't it? I gotta say that. Let me repeat. Hashtag business M, capital B, capital A and M. We are right that we should talk to you and get to answer whatever questions it is that you got to us, and any other review. Dr. Njaramba is right in the studio to help us go through some of these headlines. We talked about some of them on the news. Let's therefore cross straight away on the big screen and talk about them this morning. Let me touch on it again so we see exactly what it is that we're starting with. So responding this morning, I think this screen needs something. All right, there we go. Good. Now, you're waking up to the headline that home tax drops 21% on low property sales. Now, Dr. Njaramba, this is a headline that not many Kenyans would associate to, but those ones who are into real estate business and those ones who have suffered when it comes to property sales. If you do know that we have Suraya that started trending the other day because they could not actually remit projects to their customers. So for you right now, when you look at the real estate sector in this country, would you advise somebody to invest into it? Right? And if not, why? And if yes, what do you think is the best model and price ranges that we're talking about when we're talking about real estate sector?
Thank you, Siba.
Yes.
Good morning. Now, when it comes to real estate sector, of course, what is happening to some extent was expected.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is a sector that for some times has been quite hyped in terms of its performance. Mm-hmm. But you know that in any market, once the supply is growing, once the market actors are of course increasing, then the profit or the returns in the market are about to start declining.
Yes.
That's what we are experiencing now. Mm-hmm. That the hype in the real sector is cooling down. Of course, it started probably about 2 years ago. No, not 2, about 1 year, early last year. The returns that were experienced early alone started cooling down.
Yes.
Basically, because of reduction of the middle income group. You know, there was kind of a growth in middle income group, whom now are creating pressure in terms of demand in the real sector, the residential houses. But now, due to employment issues, of course, the unemployment started increasing some times back. Now, that group also started suffering. Mm-hmm. Again, the issue of supply. We had oversupply of houses in Kenya. It is actually funny that we're still talking about a problem of access. But in terms of research, it was actually shown that we were experiencing kind of oversupply.
Yes.
And we look at it, a real sector does not only involve houses. It involves even a land available
yes.
for putting up houses. So the issue is that we are now getting to a situation where the returns for the investors will start declining. And of course, that should be good news for Kenyans. Yes. You know, that now it will be easier to access land. Of course, the cost involved may not be that high as it has been. Mm-hmm. Of course, again, the demand for materials to put up houses is also declining. So we expect the prices to come down. as time go on.
Yes. So but let's talk about the areas that have the highest percentage of non-performing loans. Real estate sector from 2018-2019, we saw them hold 14%, all right, in terms of percentage of the leading sectors in the country that have non-performing loans. So when you look at it like that, is it that the real estate sector corresponds really to what's happening in the economy? Because some other years, like we just talk about 2002, 2003, it didn't have this percentage that we're talking about. Does it correspond to how the economy is doing that much, to the point now we're saying, yes, if the economy is doing so well, then we can expect the real estate sector to perform also well. But therefore, when you come and talk about house ownership, it's been on the same level, because we only have 10% of Kenyans looking for mortgages. How can you relate these two factors? Where, on the other side, we have only 10% looking for these mortgages, but you have some years where non-performing loans in this sector are lower than what they were in 2018-2019.
Surely, if you to look at housing from the aspect of the demand, the ones demanding home ownership may not actually go for mortgage.
Yes.
But if you can look keenly on the access of commercial banks' credit, it is more attached to houses, either in terms of security or even in terms of land development. It is always attached to houses. And now the issue of non-performing would come in, especially if the access to credit is mainly to develop the real estate. So the major problem is actually that return to capital. It is not in the sense that we are losing or they are not able to pay based on the issue of houses. It is the return to capital. You know, mainly we access credit in order to invest.
Yes. So,
and it is highly based on the return. So I will pay my loan because I'm generating income on it. So a situation where I borrowed money, and for the purpose I borrowed, I'm not able to achieve, there is that tendency to default.
yes.
So people have been accessing a loan to buy plot, not mainly to buy houses.
To buy a house.
They've
been accessing loans to buy the plots.
And majority of us have been doing it in order to wait. You buy and wait. You know, there's that saying that buy and wait.
For
that
it.
means you'd make a lot of profit. I buy plot today, 1 year later, it has doubled in terms of price. So I'm able to sell, probably clear the loan, or actually move to. So we attach our loans to our pay slips.
Yes.
But we use the money to buy probably those immobile capitals.
Yes.
Now, if you look at the issue of our salary, first, of course, the performance in economy in terms of pricing, the prices have been going down, very high growth in terms of inflation. Our inflation has been going up. I think been hitting around 6%.
Yes.
Versus the performance of salary increment, it has been around 0.2%.
Yes.
Over years, almost 5 years, it has not gone even to 1%. The growth of income. That says that the per capita of what we may call the purchasing power for consumer has been declining. These are people who've actually accessed loan.
Yes.
To buy capital, whose price is actually declining. Then the purchasing power is declining again. So, and also some losing jobs in terms of retrenchment and all that. So they have a tendency of even incentives to default, especially where now the loan is attached to that capital whose value is declining. You would be having incentive to default.
Yes.
And that's what we are experiencing now. Consumers are defaulting their loan, not because they want, they cannot pay.
Because they cannot.
But there is also another element that the collateral are declining in terms of prices. So you get an incentive. Of course, the bank Like, of course, if you look at some of the recovery, especially in terms of plots and houses, it's the issue of the value versus the amount of loan.
Yes. All right. I just want us to hold that point there as we cross over to the next issue this morning on Business AM. What headline are you waking up to? Now look at this. Smugglers killing the local farming industry. So let's just look at a bit of numbers that would therefore justify this headline. So if I click next, I expect to see exactly what we have here. Now, price differences in Kenya and Tanzania. Let's talk about onions. Now, if we look at onions, Tanzania for 40 kg, all right, bag, they're selling it at 3,200 shillings. Remember, Tanzania is just our next door neighbor. Kenya, 3,600 shillings. So you see a price difference of 400 shillings. Good, let's continue. Potatoes, a kilo in Kenya, it's going for 110 shillings. Well, in Tanzania, it's going at 100 shillings. Good. Let's look at a beer or a bottle of beer. Now, in Kenya, it's going for 220 shillings. Good. My dries, now in Tanzania, is going for just 70 shillings. Now, Dr. Njaramba, we do know of the EAC and our border controls. Now, there are fears that our economy is being run by cartels. Now, you see, now, if you're buying alcohol in Kenya for 220 shillings, and you're getting it from Tanzania, because now guys at the border controls are the ones who control these prices. What does this speak of the Kenyan economy? All right, and when you look at some of our trade differences between Kenya and Uganda and Rwanda as well, is it true that Kenya is killing its own, number one, agriculture sector, since they cannot control what happens within our borders? Is it true? Are we biting our backs?
You know, Siba, one
Yes.
thing what should actually be understood is that a black market develops due to imperfections in the market.
Yes.
Now, you see, there you wouldn't told me from going to Tanzania to have a bottle of beer now,
Yes.
because I'll pay almost half the price. And of course, you know, there is that issue of economic integration. We have a market issue, but of course we export goods to other East Africa communities, of course duty-free.
Yes.
We import duty-free, but of course once our commodities, some of our commodities, I think according to the agreement, they attract some restrictions based on the fact that during the time, the period of agreement, Kenya was seen to have some advantages.
Yes.
Of course, originated from the history. Now, they agreed that, of course, some product from Kenya to East Africa community, they attract some restrictions.
Yes.
But on the other side, Kenya importing from East Africa community, they should go for duty-free. If that is achieved, and given the prices that you're showing, then we should not produce in Kenya, especially agricultural product, because they are cheaper from produced from our neighbors.
Yes.
And that tells you that our competitiveness is declining. The cost of production is growing up.
Yes.
That's why you see, like for example, if you're talking about potatoes, to produce in Kenya, given the issue of weather, given the issue of inputs, it will be very expensive. And even to bring it to Nairobi, if you produce it in the rural sector, it will be expensive than if you import from Tanzania.
That if you import from Tanzania, isn't it? And so this is one thing that I also wanted to ask you about. If you read the budget, if you're really keenly following the budget that Rotich read the other day, now when you're talking even about maize, all right, importation and all that, they didn't say the 50% duty on maize imported from EAC was taken off. Do you think that also promotes this black market? where regardless, they said if we import as traders, we're still going to get the 50% duty, isn't it? But if we get it as a black market, then it comes to the same price. It's retailing into Tanzania, and then they can control the prices down here. Don't you think that is in one way also killing our trades here in the country?
Sure, it does, because from importing goods illegally from Uganda or Tanzania, any neighboring country, would be so easy.
Yes.
Without even being noticed at the borders, because there are so many, of course, points of access. And that's why it is always good that the prices are almost close to each other, so that they then know that incentive to illegally do trade.
Yes.
So a situation where there are restrictions and goods are cheaper in Uganda and in TZ, even at times like in Ethiopia, I know, like if you go to these upper eastern regions,
yes,
electronics are very cheap because they are accessed duty-free,
yes,
and at cheap prices.
Interesting you should talk about electronics, because now me and you do know that the amount of money that we spend to even buy our cars locally here is quite a difference when you go around EAC. Now even the farmers now get tractors. Now you can see that a John Deere tractor is actually cheaper by 25% in Uganda than it is to buy it here in Kenya, isn't it? These are some of the things that we're looking at and saying, probably if the government is preaching this song about food security and agriculture, then they should be looking into these things as well.
Yes.
All right. I just want us to cross over because my director tells me that we're running out of a little time, because I want us to talk about this headline, which is really big this morning. This one is a big issue. Dr. Njaramba, when you look at it, this is a case that has now caught stem in Kenya. Everybody's talking about it. Now, one of the greaters wants access to 3.4 million shilling school fee account. And they're saying that their kids who learn now in an international curriculum-based school in the country has got arrears up to regions of 7 million shillings. Isn't it? For you, do you think this headline is important, or this is a case that we should have closed a long time ago?
Well, are these kids schooling in Kenya? I'm wondering where the that cost of houses.
I mean, it takes 600,000 shillings to pay for school fee per term. In Kenya.
Fine. Like they have the right, of course, to complain.
Yes.
But, you know, we have that rule in Kenya that a person is innocent until proven.
Yes.
So they are still innocent.
Yes.
And you see now we can't make them suffer. But I have a problem with the approach we're having when we are fighting corruption. This issue of arresting, then looking for evidence. What should actually come first?
The evidence?
You go and arrest, or actually even now hold the asset or freeze the asset based on the fact that you have evidence. But it is taking long. Once it takes long, you're making people who are innocent, because they've not been proven guilty, to suffer. Fine. The amount, of course, mentioned is just too high. But I think we need to have a relook at how to deal with corruption issues.
Yes.
To get evidence fast enough
before we can actually move to court, because that's where the cases go and whine and whine and whine.
Yes.
Which is interesting, because the next headline this morning is about corruption as well. Now, we do know that the over 80 staff that were indicted in the KRA scandal about evasion of tax and all that have been released. Now, it's not a must that they have to go to the sea to report to court for every single day. Guess what? The 21 days that the officers were given to look into this case have expired. So that means it's not every single day that they go and report to court. No. Now, the High Court has said, look, you don't have to go every single day, because the 21 days that they were given to decide on this case have expired. Another issue that goes into our might into fighting corruption.
True. And that's what I'm saying. It is actually taking more time.
Yes.
And is in the process of looking for evidence. So the question comes, why did we have to do the arrest and of course start charging without
Yes.
the evidence? And don't forget that once you are interdicted in that manner, you still earn half of the salary.
Yes.
And also the probability that after years, once you, there was no evidence,
then
or you are converted to a witness,
yes,
all your arrears have to be
they
paid.
have to get paid, isn't it?
So it is also a cost to
Yes.
to our country if we continue with the approach that we are using.
Yes.
So I think the DCI and of course the security team, they need to be smart by trying to approach a situation in a manner that they have a tight evidence. That means the process is actually faster, and of course not to put also individual into some disadvantage position.
Yes.
Because what happens at the end of the day, if these people are found to be innocent, and of course the career, the name that of course has gone to the public, I feel as much as we want to fight corruption, it's a good way, we need to fight corruption, but we need to revert back to the old system where the moment you are arrested, the evidence is so tight that it just takes few days in court.
Yes.
And the matter
and then the case is cleared, isn't it? And that's what everybody's fighting for. To Dr. Njaramba, as we clear this one, I just want one quick response from this. Now, the Commerce Lobby, that is the Kenya National Chambers, has said Commerce, it backs the wage cap law repeal plan. So for you, from just one response as we clear this morning, do you think that the wage cap laws should be repealed, or it's just a crybaby? Banks have been profitable through this time, and now we have the Starway product that the banks are supporting as well. Should it stay or be repealed?
Actually, it was a wrong move to
start
with,
yes,
to cap interest rate. Reason being, we have better mechanism. You know, the reason why most of the countries don't even have the control, and especially why we're moving from more controlled market into free market.
Yes.
We ought to have looked at other approaches. Like any time an economy feels that there is need to access credit, central bank has tools necessary to enable that. Like for example now, the capping of interest rates against the CBR. The CBR is 10%, or they're about, I think, around 9.5.
Yes, yes.
Why should it be at that? Of course, it can go up to even zero because, you know, CBK is not there to make profit.
Yes.
It's there to regulate and, of course, to enable the financial sector to operate. So if we feel that the market needs to access credit, not go to control the interest capping, to control the interest rate. The issue should be let the financial sector, I mean the financial regulator, manage its tool. The issue of overnight trading, the issue of CBR, and it would be easily managed without resorting to capping. Now the issue of now repealing, to me, it need to be completely scrapped,
yes,
and let resort to the system already put in place by the market, yes, for regulation.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Njaramba, for joining us this morning. We shall be inviting you over and over again. You know that is true, to look into issues economy. So according to Dr. Njaramba, it should be price leadership model. Let the banks decide who their customer is, assess their risks, and then after that, we spur economic growth. Business takes a short break. Once we come back, we shall be joining Stephanie Waswa as we travel straight away to your markets this morning. And one thing that we're looking at is the market responding to the cheap 90 kg bag that is supposed to retail at 2,300 shillings. We are talking about dry maize. After the break, we shall be taking a look at that this morning.